All right. Hi, everyone. My name's Max. I'm going to be trying to help you guys learn some cnpc scripting. I'm going to try and make a kind of series of tutorials that'll start from the very basics all the way up to like some decently advanced stuff if we can try to get there. This first video is kind of going to be like a sort of class zero, kind of just covering foundational stuff and getting you everything you sort of need in order to get started. Um, I think the most important thing would be kind of setting up your workspace. I think a lot of people will skip this aspect and it'll cause a lot of confusion later down the line. So we'll just get that said and done really quick. So first thing you want to do, you can set up a sort of profile on CurseForge. Um, this one will be running like Minecraft Forge 1.7.10. I don't think the version matters too much. You can use the newest version of 1.7.10 Forge and that'll probably work fine. After that, you're going to want to install cnpc plus, as well as nashorn. Nashorn is your scripting language that's going to be used in cnpc plus. You can find it on your own computer through some sort of like really difficult means of like tracking down where your Java is installed on your PC and all that stuff. Or you can just kind of find it through the CurseForge like mod store. Thankfully, someone was nice enough to upload it, so you can just install it as is, and this will function perfect with cnpc. Next up, we'll be moving on to actually scripting. All right, we made it in. Usually for my scripting worlds, I like to do the like super flat redstone ready, but you can script on kind of any world you prefer. If you want to script in an amplified world, be my guest, but in my opinion, that seems a bit weird. So as we crack open this chest, we'll see our kind of starter items. You have your NPC wand, your scripter, your mob cloner, and your soulstone. Not all these will be used for like this specific video or this specific lesson, but just good to be familiar with all four of them as kind of your mainstay kind of objects. Um, so as you get your NPC started, you'll right click the ground, it'll generate with some random name. Let's rename this guy to Steve because that's pretty on brand for what's going on. I'm going to change his rotations that he's always facing us. And there we go. If you right click an NPC at base, it'll just say hello followed by your name. You can change that by getting rid of their dialogue lines, and I'll get rid of that for a specific reason that you guys will see here in a second. Okay, now that this NPC is kind of just like made up, if I take my scripter and I right click him, you'll see this kind of dialogue opens up. Um, don't worry too much about all of this stuff over here. The website is useful because then you'd be able to reach the API, which we will talk about a little bit later. But for now, we're just going to crack this open just so we can kind of get a look and see what's going on. So really important thing to note. If this whole language box here is empty or grayed out or it just doesn't say ECMAScript, that's bad. So that means that your Nashorn installed not correctly. It's possible that it wasn't able to read it from whatever jar you put in there, and I would suggest like reinstalling or like attempting to find a different version of Nashorn in order to do that. ECMAScript is the name of the language that we use. ECMAScript is a version of JavaScript. The specific one used in cnpc, I believe, is ECMAScript 5.1, as far as I'm aware. And then the other really important box here in this console, or in this sort of GUI, is the enabled function. You can write a script that is 3,000 lines long and has all these cool attacks and all this stuff, but if this here isn't enabled, nothing's going to happen. There is a little bit of a small bug I've noticed with cnpc. It could be due to server lag that I've experienced or something like that, or it could be due to maybe a sort of like safety precaution. Sometimes if a script will bug out or it isn't working, something like that, something errors for a little bit too long, sometimes the script will take this enabled function and flip it to no, disabling the script. So if you find that your script isn't working after you've done some shooting like that, it's possible that the script might have just turned itself off. Normally, if a script is functioning like fine, there's no errors, it won't do that. So don't worry about like putting script on like your world or server or something like that and being worried about it just randomly turning off. If the script functions and works correctly, it should be turned on. Okay. Cool. So from there, we're not going to go to the scripts tab here. Funny enough, we're actually going to head over to the event scripts, and you can see it has a similar dialogue. ECMAScripts is the language, enabled no because we haven't turned it on yet. It has this little like box here. This is actually going to be your error log or kind of like your console for output stuff. I actually don't use the output here. Because I just don't really prefer using it that way. I actually use the NPC talking or sending messages to the player for kind of debugging. But a lot of people like using the console, so it's important to know. Other things to keep track of, you have a link to your API docs, the source, the website, all that stuff. We will get to that in the future, I promise. But for now, don't worry about too much about this. For now, let's kind of get into the event scripts, or at least how to view them. So you'll see up here is this little plus sign next to your settings. You click on that and it'll open this whole new dialog here with a lot of different stuff. As you can see, there's these hooks here, which you probably don't know what those are yet. If you do, you might not even need this video altogether, but nonetheless, we'll figure that stuff out. So before we even interact with the hooks, there is actually something I'd like to take a look at. And that's going to be my friends right behind me. Okay. In JavaScript, or the code that we're going to be, the language that we're going to be using for scripts, there's a couple different types of data types. So data types are different things that you can plug into functions or different sort of methods in order to do different things. And I know those are a lot of different words, and if you're not familiar at all with the coding space, that can be confusing. So if whatever it takes for you to understand that, don't worry about them as functions, methods, whatever. Just imagine these as different types of data, or like maybe even different like letters in the alphabet or languages, whatever kind of works for you, you know? So the first one up is going to be bytes, and this is like our kind of smallest amount of data that we can get, or one of our smallest that we can get in JavaScript. So a byte is usually like a just one digit number. I believe bytes can go up to 10. But this is just like an extremely like small amount of information or data to represent a number. So one would be a byte. Pretty simple stuff. You do 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, that sort of thing. Those will all be bytes. Next up, we move up to integers. Now, integers might be the one that people might be a little bit more familiar with. There's the infamous or famous, whatever have you, number, which is the integer limit, which is that like 2, 4, 7, whatever. I can't think of the integer limit off the top of my head, but it's out there. It's a very quick Google search away. Integers are similar to bytes, where there aren't any decimal places. So it's just like 1, 2, 3, 4. An integer could be like 256, 3,210, something like that. Integers are just nice whole numbers without any sort of decimals attached to them. So this is integer is like 123, which is an integer. Floats. Floats are where we sort of get into more like a little bit more precise math or precise numbering. Floats are the ones that are going to represent decimals, and floats can represent decimals up to 7 decimal places. We won't get into why exactly it's 7. It's due to how many bits a float can represent, but either way, float represents decimals. So you can have a float that's like 1.27, 3.75, 300.27, something like that, and it can go up to 7 places. So this float is 0.000000 blah 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 1. So it's a pretty small number. The next up is doubles. So doubles are called what they are because they are double the amount of bits as a float. So instead of representing 7 decimal places, they can represent 14. So if you want even more precise math, you can use a double. So this double is like 0.0. This isn't exactly double of the last one, but it's just even more decimal places. Next up is going to be a string. So strings are ways to represent mostly words in like most coding languages. JavaScript specifically is what we'll be working with. Strings can be used to represent words. So in this example, you could see this word being represented is hello world. It's also surrounded by that sort of quotation mark because that's how you'd write out a string in JavaScript. Some important things to know though about strings. You can write a number as a string or a decimal as a string. I don't really know why you would, but you can if you want to. So you just have to put it within those sort of quotation marks, and we'll get to all that stuff when we actually start scripting. And then our final data type is going to be a Boolean. So Booleans represent your like most basic foundational sort of computational science or all that sort of stuff. And that's a lot of words, I know. Booleans, in the simplest way, are your true and false, your on or off, 0 or 1 in a function. To represent them is going to be true or false. So if we right click this guy, it's going to be say true. If we wanted to make it false, we would just write out false, and it's going to be all lowercase. And that's your most, like, again, foundational levels of like computing and all that stuff. Easy example of a Boolean would be like a light switch in your house. When it's off, you could say it's returning false. When it's on, you could say it's returning true. Yeah, so those are kind of all of our data types that we can use. Everything else is going to be essentially branched out from that in a way. And you'll kind of see what I mean when I get to this. So we're going to come over back to Steve. We're going to take our scripting wand, we're going to right click on him, and that this dialog pop up. So if we want to get to the event scripts tab, again, we're going to click on event scripts. And then after I made that plus sign, it created this tab 1. You can make a bunch of tabs on an NPC, but usually if it's just one NPC, you can kind of stick to tab 1. So we're going to go back into our tab 1. So next thing we're going to do is kind of markdown comments. Markdown comments are just a way to write lines in your code that won't be read by the code, so it won't impact it. So to do that, you do 2, what is that, like forward slashes? I believe these are forward slashes. Yeah, you're going to do 2 like normal forward slashes followed by whatever you want to write. So if I just want to write, hi, this is a test. This dialog, since it's grayed out, won't be read by the code and it won't really impact anything. So I can activate this script, and if I right click him, nothing happens, there's nothing in there. If I go into event scripts, there's no sort of error log, and that's because this is commented out. Now if I remove these 2 lines and I go back into the script and I crack them open, it's going to give me this whole exception error where something went wrong. Hi, this is a test, is not evaluated at number 1, column 3, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It didn't really like that. So if I comment this out and come back, important thing to note also about this sort of dialogue here, it does not automatically clear itself. It will update if you get a new error, but if your code is working, it won't automatically clear itself. So I'm just going to clear this myself now. And I'm going to close the NPC, go back in, and you see there's no new error because this is commented out. It's kind of how markdown comments work. There's another way to write them where this is for a single line comment. If you want to do a multi-line comment, you can do, it's a forward slash followed by a star or the asterisk, and then you go down a couple lines. I'm hitting enter, but the cursor doesn't show up for some reason. It's a funny little cnpc thing that happens. And then I'll hit the asterisk again, followed by another slash. Imagine this is kind of like the opening to a door, and this is closing the door on your comment. Anything outside of it won't be grayed out, so that means it will be read by the code and it will cause that error if it's not actual good code. But anything in between these 2 lines is fine, and you can just keep hitting enter to add more lines. So let's say you want to write like a big sort of grand description before your code just to describe what it does or what's going on. I would more often than not use a multi-line comment just so that you don't have to worry about putting a slash before every single line of code or every single line of description you're writing. But yeah, that's kind of it for the markdown stuff. So let's use a inline comment to title our code. This is going to be called, let's just say like starter code version 1. Yeah, v 1.0, and we'll say by, or we'll say author Max. Okay, so what do we want this code to do? So I know I haven't really gone into the API too much for anything like that, so we're not going to do anything too complex. I'll kind of like tell you guys exactly what's going on with all the sort of stuff I'm writing. So we're going to actually go and use our first event hook, which I know is something new that we haven't really talked about yet. So in order to do that, we're going to take this interact one. We're just going to click on it twice, or while it's selected, click on it, and you'll see that it automatically populates with this sort of function interact event, these curly brackets, and then another curly bracket closed off. I'm going to bring this up just because there's a lot of dead space in between. But yeah, So we have this weird little thing saying function interact event. What the hell does that mean? And don't worry, we'll get to that. So the hooks here are sort of ways for your scripts to interact with the game, the world, all sorts of different stuff that happens. There's different ones for different things. So you have like init, tick, interact, dialogue, damage, killed, melee attack, melee swing, range launch, target, collide, kills, dialogue close, timer, target loss, projectile tick, and projectile impact. So a lot of those are pretty straightforward, but some of them are a little bit confusing. I'll make sure to do a video on exactly all of the events and what they do, but for now we're just going to focus on the interact event. So the interact event, pretty straightforward. This one runs whenever a player interacts with the NPC that this code is in. So that'd be like kind of right clicking on them, that sort of thing. Not to be confused with if you're punching an NPC, that would be in the damaged event, which is slightly different. So this event has a few parameters that we can get. And I know I'm, again, saying a lot of stuff, but we're just trying to get through sort of like base code just for you guys to see kind of how this stuff works. So first thing we'll do is we have to create a variable. Now this is going to be like kind of the backbone of how you do a lot of things in scripting. And to make a variable, it's pretty easy. You write out the like prefix var, which is var, supposed to stand for variable. You do a space and you'll give the variable a name. Usually you want to give your variables names that make sense and kind of are good and nice. So I'm going to name this variable NPC. And I'm going to do an equal sign. Basically what you're telling the code is I'm going to make a new variable. This variable is going to be called NPC and it's going to be set to be equal to something. Do note you do to put a space in between var and NPC. You'll know you did it right because it'll turn green like this. The space after NPC and the equal sign isn't necessary. It's just kind of good coding practice to space out stuff like this. I don't know why, but that's kind of just the way it is, the way I learned. So just good coding practice. Now, this variable NPC, what we're going to do is within the interact event, again, I know you guys aren't too familiar with it, but we'll get there. Within the interact event, we can do a certain function that'll allow us to obtain the NPC that this script is inside of as a sort of object that we can manipulate and kind of do stuff with. So I'm just going to write that out now. It's going to be event.getNPC. Again, don't worry about exactly how this works just yet. We're going to cover that when we look at the API. But the most important part is that I'm using this event prefix. Why am I using the event prefix? So inside this function interact event, it's saying function interact, and then in these quotes, it's saying event. Basically, the easiest way I'd kind of put it is saying when an interact happens, we're going to use this sort of event variable name thing that we put here as a way to reference the event. You can change what's in here by default. The cnpc will automatically generate these functions to have the prefix as event. Some people just like to do it as E. Some people, I don't know, will change it to like A or something. Either way, whatever's inside those quotations has to be the same one that you use to reference the event. So if I put E in here, I can't do event.getNPC because that won't work. I'd have to do e.getNPC. Yeah, hopefully that made sense. I'm just going to return it to event so it looks like a normal script. So we're going to do from the interact event, we're going to call a function called getNPC. This one just allows us to obtain the NPC. Again, don't worry too much about how I know that one. That's just one that I use a bunch and I know from the API. But we're going to get to the API here in a bit. So after I do this kind of get NPC, I'm going to press enter to generate a new line. And then from there, I'm going to execute a function on the NPC. So we're going to do npc dot say, let's say hello world. It's very like classic code stuff. So I did a couple of things there. So we're going to get to that. Don't worry. So I use the say function from the NPC, which is again another function I know from the API that NPC type objects have. And I populated this function with a string. If the word populate is confusing you, just imagine this say function as a kind of car. that takes very specific type of gas. So the gas that this one takes is a string object. So we have to supply it with a string. We do those 2 quotations, and we just fill in the string in between. You can tell that you made the string correctly because cnpc will turn the string to this nice red color. If you're colorblind, that might be tough. You might need to get a sort of like resource pack to help with that, or I'm sure there might be some sort of colorblind assistance that'll help you be able to see. But either way, the hello world will be turned red to show that it is now a string. Now, this code should work. So now if I back out of here, let me open up my NPC to make sure that it has no dialogue of its own. It does not. So now if I right click this NPC, it's going to say hello world. And that was not done through its interact lines. That was done through the, oh, I went to the wrong spot. That wasn't done through its interact lines. That was done directly through our script. This, again, is the most bare bones thing you can do with scripting. We can get to stuff where you can like make it shoot these like crazy particles or do these crazy animations. But for now, I just want you guys to get a feel for what this looks like and kind of introductory stuff with different types of like data types and stuff like that. Yeah, hopefully this made sense so far.